Here at TWRS, we're always here to help our squad when they need a little push in the right direction. That's just who we are. We're a beautifully diverse group of goofballs dedicated to driving fake race cars as fast as possible. And we continue to push each other to the front using the power of nonsense. We have one of the strongest NASCAR programs on the service, and you can access it all for $24.99 a month. And we just released individual subscriptions for $14.99 a month for each NASCAR vehicle. We also just added a Rallycross program, and our IndyCar program is taking off as well. So come join the weird side. We have speed and cookies. Cookies are not included in some locations.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Another night of iRacing action here on the National Racing Network. We are proud to be presenting the, let's see, I got to find the graphics here. There's the button, the TNT Shock Series with their 5th of 6 rounds in their fall championship season. My name is Chris Graham, joined in the booth as always by Mr. Patrick Byrne, and this one's going to be a little bit interesting because the Bizzler will be driving tonight at Richmond Raceway. He has approximately 3/4 of a lap in practice. The backstory to this is we weren't sure if we were going to have race control tonight, so we were getting everything ready for Bizzle to handle the race control duties if needed. And then we figured out that we would not need Bizzle to handle things in the race control booth, so he's going to hop into the car since he had already registered as a driver. So, Bizzle, what are you thinking here? We're going to do an over-under. Do we get to halfway with you still in this race?
I don't think so. I was consuming alcoholic beverages, considering that I was just going to be up here in the booth, not driving a vehicle. I was messing around in the sim a little bit earlier ago on a different sim, so I already had the wheel and pedals set up and ready to go, so I said, screw it, why don't we come run this race, and hopefully I'm not going to take James Watson or someone else out of the championship. My only goal here is to make it to the 25-minute mark. If we can accomplish that, I think this will be an alright night. But qualifying getting underway, I should probably go out there and at least try to set a time, because you said I had approximately 3/4 of a lap in practice here. I have absolutely no practice here.
That sounds even better, honestly.
In fact, the drivers were making fun of me in the pre-race because my paint scheme is the old Get Well Soon Wes paint scheme. If you've been a follower of the National Racing Network for a long time, about 4 years ago, we ran the Get Well Soon Wes scheme. Wes missed the last couple races in the championship because he had an illness.
He had COVID.
Yes.
So that tells you how far back the Get Well Soon Wes paint scheme goes. Approximately 2020, as we see Chris Hill slot into position at number 7. AJ Camargo just coming across the line to finish his qualification run, and he goes quick time 19.350. How about it? Best lap of 19.346 for Camargo. That's a heater right there. Let's pick up James Watson in the number 39. 2 minutes, 45 seconds remaining in the qualification session. You will see an addition to the timing tower, actually possibly a couple of additions tonight. We do have the fastest lap marker next to the driver that currently possesses the fastest lap. I don't remember if we give a bonus point out for that or not, but either way, it's irrelevant. Lets you know who's fast over the course of the race. Also, the timing tower will be able to showcase meatballs, disqualification flags, and black flags. That is something to keep a note of, as well as Watson moves up into position number 2. 29 thousandths back of AJ Camargo. Wait, let's see. I'm seeing a message that says, beautiful crash, Bizzler. But he is not.
I was just about to comment on that. Wes in the pre-race was telling me this setup is tighter than his normal sets. Now, I haven't driven this car in approximately 3.5 years, and I am used to a loose setup with this car. Now, if he's saying this is way tighter than his normal sets, I don't know how he drives normally, because I came off of 2 and the thing just snapped dead sideways, and I found the inside wall, so... I really, if any of our viewers at home pick the over, please reconsider your bets before the green flag drops, because I don't think I'm going to make it past lap 1 in this thing.
There you go. Jason Owens bidding it to the inside wall. A nice recreation of the Bizzlers incident there. Thank you very much, Jason. We appreciate that. M. McCullen is checking in the Discord saying, y'all doubted me? No, not doubted you, but we were making contingency plans in case you were unavoidably detained. Let's see. I think the only car we have left on the track is Daniel Miglin. Let's take a look. Yeah, he's also off the racing surface. Drew Bernardi attempted a qualification. He did not get a lap scored, or at least he did not score during the 2-lap qualification, 2-lap average. Bizzle did not get a lap in the books either. Dave Sparks and Ben Carswell have not yet been out on the racing surface here in qualifications. So, Bizzle, there's a fair bit of talk in the pre-race about the fact that there is the possibility of some strategy shenanigans that may make things interesting. But nobody was willing to spill the beans. What do you think that could mean? Is that something more akin to fuel save and get to halfway? Or is it's just something that I'm not thinking of like entirely here?
I think it's going to be tire wear. This track, Iowa is my baby. I love driving at Iowa, and Iowa was created after Richmond. Now, this track being as slidey as it is, not as flat out as Iowa is, this is going to be a right rear track. If Wes says this setup is tighter than his normal setups, which are usually on a knife edge, and this thing still wants to kill me, this is going to be a right rear tire race, and I think this is going to be a 2-stop race with drivers coming in to swap tires. That being said, if I knew I was going to be in the car, I would have done a lot more practice, and I would have a lot better of an answer for you.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to roll with this one as we get it here. So, cars are getting out onto the starting grid. So, let's bring up the starting lineup for you here for tonight's 50-minute feature event for the TNT Shock Series at Richmond Raceway. Starting on the pole in the Team Watson Racing Setups National Racing Network, number 59, out of Brazil, it is Nieje Camargo. The last time we saw him start on pole, I believe he picked up his first TNT Shock Series win, 2-lap average of 19.350 seconds. 29 thousandths back in the Team Watson Racing Setups National Racing Network, ZAS Designs, number 39, it is James Watson out of Ohio. Row number 2, the NASA Meatball, number 8, belonging to Brian Labarge, lining up to his outside, the number 400 of Matt Schlosser. Row number 3, Jason Miller in the Miller High Life Special. God, that number 3 car is beautiful. Starting on the inside of the third row to the outside, Nagase Yoshikawa in the Team Watson Racing Setups National Racing Network, number 26. Row number 4, the Dizzy V Designs, Team Watson Racing Setups number 98 of Vic Aldrich, alongside of the Team Watson Racing Setups number 7 of Ohio's Jesse Francisco. I will forgive the paint scheme, but not the helmet, Jesse. Row number 5, in the Homestead Coffee Roasters, Catacamera Schaefer Oils number 16, multi-time series champion Wes Shire, and to the outside, the TNT Shock Series number 256 of Simon Fell. Row number 6 on the inside, the 101 of California's Christopher Hill, alongside of the Napa Auto Parts Lumar Hooters, number 28 of Jason Padu. Stephen C. Thompson inside of row number 7, and to his outside, Drenjen Wang in the number 61. Row number 8, Peter Donchak in the old Caterham colors. Not sure about the F1 paint schemes, Peter, but we might let it slide tonight. To his outside, the 555 of Daniel Miglin. Murray Damon alongside of Mike Long on row number 9. Row 10 will have Justin Elliott and Steve Costley. Row 11, Jason Owens and Bizzler. Ben Carswell, Dave Sparks make up the final row of the grid. Field comes down to green. First lap, as always, race fans, going to be all yours. number 1 is in the books, and it belongs to AJ Camargo, James Watson, Brian Labarge, Matt Schlosser, and Jason Miller. The top 5 side-by-side battle between Miller and Yoshikawa.
Surprisingly, I've passed a number of cars. I am up to the 18th position. We've made it 3 laps further now than I expected I would.
Well, let's see how many laps in we can get before we get a potential yellow flag.
It looked like a lot of carnage was trying to happen there on that first lap, but unfortunately, I guess, did not happen.
Yeah, taking a look here a little bit further up, how about James Watson, the AJ Camargo battling for the race lead off at turn number 2. A little bit tail happy goes Watson down on the inside of the racing surface. Watson going to have the short way around. Camargo may be able to keep the big Mo wound up on the outside. Nothing going there, and it's going to be Watson, your new race leader, off to turn 1. Let's see. I believe we have a comment coming in here. The irony of which is pretty beautiful. Ben Carswell checking in saying, they let Patrick in the race. Well, since you decided not to show up, Ben, yeah, they let Patrick in. Somebody had to be a field filler. Slide back a little bit here. Yoshikawa alongside of, I believe that was... Well, let's see. Yeah, it looks like possibly... It's almost like, oh, there we go. I'm seeing people out of order. That's why. Matt Schlosser is who Nagase Yoshikawa was battling with.
I think Mike Long's ready to kill me
Excuse
because
me.
I passed him and now I'm going slower.
Picking up Stephen C. Thompson here, battling with Jesse Francisco. This right at the tail end of the top 10. Possibly,
I have already... Oh.
Well, I'd say possibly some trouble here for Jason Owens. But it looks like I'm not seeing anything in the session events. Let me see.
I did hit that backstretch wall and have destroyed my right front tire, and somehow this car feels better. Oh, here we go. I hit it again.
So
We're gonna let some cars pass me.
I was gonna say, so Bizzle's hitting things, which is not wholly a surprise, as there's an absolute hornet's nest going on here. Wes Shire in the middle of that, seeing Jesse Francisco. Also looks like Stephen C. Thompson in there as well. Now we've got the session events updating again here. Let's see if we can identify possibly what happened to Jason Owens. I'm not seeing anything. So it looked like Jason Owens just an early retirement here.
I have 7 minutes required, and I believe my night is over. So if you picked the under before tonight's green flag started, you do win.
That's kind of disappointing here. Man, what a battle with Shire, also Vic Aldrich, Stephen C. Thompson there, Jesse Francisco just up ahead. Seeing the lap car of, I believe that is Justin Elliott in the 926, the throwback Williams Canon cameras entry. And we talk a lot, we might poke a lot of fun at the cars running vintage F1 paint schemes, but Justin Elliott picked himself up at top 10 just a couple of weeks ago. Elliott was around at the finish. There we just saw him up against the outside safer barrier. But sometimes in these races, all you have to do is hang around. That really could be true for the 101 of Chris Hill. Let's take a look here. Chris Hill all by himself towards the back of the pack. Dave Sparks about a half second ahead. Chris Hill entering the night with a 28-point championship lead over this man, James Watson, leading at the head of the field and nearly a second ahead of Brian Labarge. In a championship with drop weeks, Chris Hill has the ability to throw one away here. Watson, on the other hand, does not. He went out early last time we were out. Watson needs a win here tonight.
Yeah, Watson is basically fighting for his life here in the championship. Crashed out of last week's race and already used his drop on the second week of the season. Coming down from winning the championship last season to now basically fighting to even have a chance at it is definitely a huge swing, huge upset. Now, this is only a 6-week season. It's not like we're running a full-length season here for the early part of winter of 2024. So I can't fault them. It's very easy to have things go downhill very quickly, and you don't have a lot of time to recover.
Yeah, and he's still only 28 points out of the championship battle here. He's still second in the championship standings. So we'll see how things shake out after tonight, but potentially a very big night for James Watson. Seahawks Nate is checking in, asking about the pit window. Bizzle, you saw a little bit of data from being inside the car. What is that number, do you think, going to look like? Are these drivers going to be able to make it to halfway?
You give me a lot of credit, Chris, thinking I looked at a fuel number while I was trying to hang on for dear life behind the wheel of this car. But typically in the TNT Shock Series, with the new fuel setup we have for this season, the pit window opens up about 20 minutes, and to 24 minutes is about when you're going to make your first pit stop. Now, if we get a caution early here, if I decide to go back out into the racetrack and spin out down the back straightaway, we could have a caution here in the early part of this race, and that would bring the pit window out to that halfway point. If we get a caution later on, that means this would only be a one-stop race, but it does require 2 cautions for this to be a one-stopper. So I'd say at 20 to 23 is the optimal point, but you're going to see a lot of drivers start coming in at that 18-minute mark.
Picking up Daniel Miglin, coming around Jason Paydu in the battle for the 14th position. And that's really the point. You can get the one caution. Okay, you got it. You made it to halfway. You still need another one in the second half of the race. And the Shock Series guys here at Richmond, kind of like Iowa, thousands upon thousands of laps. Everybody's got a pretty decent feel, with the exception of you, for what the car's going to do as the run progresses. It potentially could be 50 minutes straight through with no caution flags. I say that knocking on wood.
Yeah, these guys, the whole time we've been following the TNT series, since 2020, they either go caution-free throughout the race, or it's a caution fest. There's absolutely no in between, and if it's a caution fest, usually you get a couple cautions early on, the middle portion of the race is clean, and then you get a couple cautions towards the end. So, since we haven't seen cautions early on in this one, we're approaching 10 minutes into this race already. I think this one's going to go flag to flag. Now, I might be jinxing that. Nigisi Yoshikawa and Nick Camargo almost getting into each other, but I don't think this one's going to be a caution fest, as we're used to seeing at Richmond, not only in the open wheel cars, but especially in the stock cars.
Yeah, and even to that point, there is about the only thing that really causes the big cautions here is when we end up with drivers that are on like polar opposite ends of the latency spectrum. So it's a netcode issue. These drivers are very good. They can race close together without junking up a lot of race cars for the most part. It's when you start to get some of the goofiness of latency and netcode getting involved, that's really when you start to see the issues happen.
Yeah, so my girlfriend and her nephew are texting me right now, berating me for finishing in the back of the pack, only making it not even 5 laps into this thing. So
you made 11. Timing and scoring says you made 11 laps.
I don't believe that. I don't believe I made it that far, but definitely disappointing my fans here tonight, and they are personally letting me know.
Well, yeah, assuming you have fans in general is... Well, we'll just leave that one there.
It's plural. That's 2 people.
Oh, baby, how about
Big
Vic
moment
Aldrich?
there.
Vic Aldrich may have gotten the safer barrier exiting turn number 2 that time. Entire field had to scramble to get around him. If he got it, it wasn't by much, though. It seems like the car looks okay. We'll see if we can get you a little bit tighter of a look here. Left side looks all right. The right rear looks like it's pointed the right direction. That's one of the things we've noted about this PM18 car. You can really kind of pancake the wall. If you hit it square, you may not do all that much damage. It's when you hit one corner first and it kind of snaps the car into the wall, that's when you see a lot of the damage happen.
Getting word from Race Control, there is a meatball on the 926 car. Now, that contact there against that backstretch safer battery was similar to my lap 1 contact, where you just hit it kind of square. I could see on my screen that there was damage to the right front tire there, but the car didn't feel like it was driving any differently. It still felt fast. I was still in front of Matt Long and still not pulling away from him, but holding the same gap to him. So you can definitely damage these things a little bit. As long as you hit the wall square, you're not tearing the wings off it. That's the most delicate part of the car, and that's the most important part of the car. So as long as you don't hurt the wings, you're A-okay.
Seeing possibly an issue here for the 00 of Dave Sparks. Maybe some contact with the 926 of Justin Elliott. Elliott on pit road serving his meatball, while Dave Sparks is coming down pit lane as well. We're following the side-by-side fight between Matt Schlosser and Jason Miller. Seahawks Nate asking actually 2 questions here. What's the playoff/championship format? Straight through, 1 drop week. That's it. The point system is, I don't want to say, it's not overly complicated. Don't they use the old IndyCar system? It's like 50 for first, 40 for second, 35 for third.
No, for points, because we're dumb, just like Anderson Promotions. I didn't say that word. We use their point system for the real-life USF 2000 Pro Championship, which means it's not linear, it's not exponential, it just kind of has random values assigned to the numbers. I've tried to plot it on a graph, and there is no function that makes it make any sense.
Okay. So we are using the real-world USF 2000 point system, USF 2000 Pro. Make sure we get that one correct. And then the second question that came in from Nate was, what's a meatball? Too much damage? Yeah, the meatball, it's actually a flag displayed at the start-finish line, or it's more common in road racing that you'll see it. And it'll be displayed at a marshal post. It's a black flag with an orange circle in the middle. Kind of looks like a meatball. That flag says, you broke something, go get it fixed. You're leaking fluid. There's something we don't like mechanically about the race car. It's not a penalty flag per se. It's more of a car condition flag. It's great battle here between Camargo and Yoshikawa for third. Labarge just up ahead, and these guys have all caught Watson.
Most commonly, you'll see the meatball flag in SCCA racing, where they give a car a meatball flag. Hey, your bumper's hanging off. Let's get this fixed so we don't have to send a cleanup crew out there after a spec Ford smashes into your bumper and absolutely destroys itself. Or, yeah, like you said, it's leaking fluid. Or even simple stuff like, hey, your muffler fell off. Or even simpler than that, your car is too loud. It's against our noise pollution for what we have a right to make at this track at this time.
Correct. There's actually, that's something that a lot of series have to deal with at the amateur level, where you'll have a noise ordinance that's in place, and the cars actually have to run a spec muffler. Every car runs the exact same manufacturer and model of muffler to keep the car noise below a certain level. Great point by Ed McCullen in the Discord as well. IMSA does it a lot for lighting at night. You actually do have to have functioning headlights throughout the night. Even a place like Daytona that's so well lit, you have to have lights functioning on the car. That can get you a meatball flag as well. So looking at the clock. Oh, good.
My favorite thing I've ever done, so to skirt the rules of a racing series, I am a brilliant genius. We took the turndowns off of my Mustang for our Spec B fit that we ran at school. Took one of the turndowns off my Mustang and put it on this fit because SCCA only monitors level on one side of the track. So you could turn the turndown, so if the monitor was on the right side of the track, we turned the turndown to the left, so all of this noise exit on the driver's side of the vehicle. If at another track they had on the left side of the track, we moved it so it'd be on the right side. We never got hit with a penalty after that. And that same car, Chris, after I graduated college, we went to PRI a couple of years ago. I saw a Honda Fit in the basement of PRI, and I said, that last name looks familiar. I got under that Honda Fit, and by God, that turndown was still under there. Rob was still doing the same thing. And I ran into him at Mid-Ohio a couple weeks ago. And that car still has my old Mustang turndown right on the back of it, so he can change the direction that the sound goes.
That's fantastic. By the way, great battle here. Yoshikawa, Schlosser, and Miller all tucked up together. James Watson may have to contend with Brian Labarge here. The gap sitting between 2 and 3/10 of a second. The AJ Camargo closing in. He's within 2/10 of Labarge for second. That's your top three on the screen right there as we are working lap number 50. 33 minutes, 50 seconds remain on the clock. So we're starting to get down to where that pit window could be coming into play. I would think, Bizzle, you talked about that 20-minute mark being the number. You really could basically just take 50 and divide it into thirds if you wanted to split the race up evenly. That's kind of what we saw Chris Hill do to great success at Watkins Glen. He just ran to whatever his number was. He went by time and said, I'm stopping here whether I need it completely or not, because it was going to give him open track. A little bit less likely you're going to get anything resembling open track here at Richmond, but that could be something that the drivers think about is, do you try that undercut strategy? Top four all now close together within 2/3 of a second. Matt Schlosser is sitting about 1.3 seconds back, maybe losing a hair to Yoshikawa. That's between fourth and fifth. Your top four all nose to tail here as we are down to 32 and a half minutes remaining in this race.
So I had my mic muted as I'm going on this big rant about tire wear and all of this other stuff, but Richmond and Iowa, if you put them side by side, they're almost an identical racing track. The dimensions are almost the same. The track size is almost the same. But the concretes that make them up are completely different, and the atmospheres that surround them is completely different. Richmond being in Virginia, Iowa being in the cornfields of Iowa. Which means Iowa is dead flat out. It doesn't really matter short pitting. You actually don't want to short pit. You want to stay in the draft. Richmond, however, you're giving a brief blip of the throttle. Every time you enter the corners, you're just trailing the brake in the center to keep the car down there. So by short pitting and putting yourself in clean air, pitting a little bit early is what we mean by short pitting, could definitely give you an advantage, allow you to hold the throttle open just a little bit longer, get on the power a little sooner, because you have that extra downforce of not having a car in front of you, not being in that dirty air.
Well, you have to wonder if the tires may be coming into play here a little bit. Brian Labarge has come around James Watson, now picking up his second lap lead of the night. And Watson just a tick slower than what we're seeing out of Camargo and Yoshikawa. In fact, they're nearly 3 wide. Watson looks like he's coming to pit lane. Drivers have to enter the pits off of turn number 3. And here comes James Watson. First car down pit lane at 31 minutes remaining. Interesting strategy call here by Watson. I think maybe listening to the broadcast a little bit here, Bizzle, because you called it. Maybe this is a place where you can take the short pit and make that work for you.
Yeah, and here versus Iowa for sure, I think the short pit is going to help a guy like Watson. You can get out there, you're in clean air, you can set burning fast laps while all these other guys are in traffic fighting other cars. Brian Labarge here, however, is your race leader. He is in clean air, and he doesn't have any cars fighting with him behind. So I think Watson's going to lose the short pit advantage, kind of like Watson wanted to get. Brian Labarge is in that advantage right now.
Seeing the AJ Camargo making his way towards pit lane. Brian Labarge does as well. Labarge a little bit later of an entry. We'll see if race control has anything to say about that. Typically, the drivers have to enter pit lane basically at the end of the backstretch. Not sure if that's something that they would have a look at up in the tower here, but Brian Labarge now hitting his box. Nagisa Yoshikawa on pit lane as is Nieje Camargo, your pole sitter. He's in box number 1. Down to just inside of 30 minutes remaining. Labarge is away cleanly, as is Camargo. So now Jason Miller will be your race leader. Taking a look at the lap averages, Jason Miller's at a 19.610 for the 15-lap average. Nagisa Yoshikawa, 19.704. Here comes Miller this time. So this will absolutely be a 2-stop race. Even with cautions in the second half, it would take multiples in order for these drivers to make this a 1-stop race.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can make this one a 1-stop race. Even if you could make the fuel number work, the tire wear, especially on that right rear, is so tremendous at this track. And if you wear that right rear more than 40-50%, this car becomes a snappy, loose monster where either you're feathering the throttle so much, you're getting on the brakes so hard to keep it from killing you, or at worst, it does kill you. It spins you around down the backstretch, or going to try and save it, you end up in a smiley situation and end up nose into the outside wall, and that's definitely going to ruin your night.
See the black flag next to Peter Donchak's name. Too fast entering pit lane. And this right now is your battle for the lead. Jason Paydu on pit lane as your race leader. Yoshikawa should be able to come around. But of note, James Watson stopped first. He's now running in the 4th position, just getting around Matt Schlosser. So now it's going to be James Watson third, about 3/4 of a second behind Nagisa Yoshikawa. So after the first round...
Yoshikawa is another one of the really fast drivers in the series. Nagisa, driving out of Chicago, running a very successful real-life go-kart program, and comes out here and usually doing a pretty good job of kicking everyone's butt. Not the fastest drivers on the ovals, but when we get to the road courses, he's definitely one of the drivers to watch out for. And him being in the lead right now in clean air, I think he's going up
Trouble on the racetrack. Looks like it may be trouble for Peter Donchak. Let's take a look and see what we can see here on the NRN replay.
Donchak, just what I was talking about. That right rear tire wearing out, it just spins you out of nowhere. You lose control of it, where it doesn't have any more grip, and that's the tire leaning on most here on these ovals.
Yeah,
so there's nothing you can do about it.
And Donchak spinning down to the inside. Might have thought about trying to get the car squared up and going again, but you saw the leaders come right through the frame, and that's why the caution flag will come out. This is the big difference between the virtual world and the real world of racing. In the real world, that is a caution each and every time out. In the virtual world, if the driver clears themselves quick enough, you're not necessarily going to get a caution flag there for a single car spin. In this case, Donchak trying to wait it out and get the car squared up, but a little bit too close for comfort to the racing line.
Yeah, even in the real world, a single car spin isn't always a caution. I've been to plenty of NASCAR races or even local dirt track races where a single car spins and they get themselves cleared out of the way, especially like on a restart where the whole field is at one portion of the track, where they just keep it green and just keep going. But definitely in the virtual world, you don't have a risk of human danger. Nobody's going to die if they get T-boned at 200 miles an hour. But you still have to think about the points championship, all the drivers that are competing for that points championship, and you don't want to ruin any of their races too by a car being stopped down the back straightaway. So there's a very fine line you have to walk as race control to decide when to pull out the caution or when to hold it.
Interesting call here. Mike Long on pit lane. I kind of like this. Could Mike Long, we're down to right about the halfway point. If you sip enough fuel, could Mike Long make the finish of this race? Or if we get another caution flag, Mike Long's going to be in really good position.
If we get another caution flag, this is the race-winning move of the night. We saw all of our top drivers go nearly a lap down, if not a lap down, under that green flag pit cycle. So if we get another caution later on, and everyone has pit already, nobody else is going to pit, and Mike Long is going to put himself on the top spot. All he's got to do is hang on that restart with those old tires. It might not be the race-winning move, but it definitely could be a top 5 move of the night.
That's it. It takes you from towards the back of the pack and puts you up towards the front, potentially. Interesting comment here from 06 Champ, going back to our discussion of points. The USF Pro 2000 Oval points is the road points system times 1.5 and round up.
Okay,
so
see, we're
there's
using...
your algorithm for how they got to this particular point system.
Yes, because I tried to graph this, and it makes no sense. If you finish 10th, that's 17 points. If you finish 9th, you only gain 1 point to 18 points. If you finish 8th, that's 20 points. You gain 2 points there. But going back to 9th and 10th, there's only 1 point separating 9th and 10th. If you finish 11th, you lose 2 points, and that's 15 points. So it constantly jumps around, and it's not linear, and it's not exponential either. It's just...
Which makes
looking
sense.
at it on a graph... Yeah, looking at it on a graph was infuriating.
Well, multiply by 1.5, round up, you're going to get some oddballs there, which makes sense. So
it makes the math make a lot more sense, and I understand why it's that way now. But before looking at it, it was like, what was Anderson Promotions thinking when they came up with this points format?
So Drew Bernardi is on pit road as well at the 1 to green. He comes down and tops it off. 23 minutes remain. Bernardi on his way back out onto the racetrack. He'll be able to basically be almost full throttle as these guys are coming back to the green. 22 minutes, 50 seconds remain in the penultimate round of the championship. Watson, big dive down inside of LaBarge. Did he time it right to get him into turn number 1? You can't pass inside before the start-finish line. Nothing says you can't pass inside exiting turn 2. And that's exactly what Watson's going to try, as Schlosser may have gotten the wall exiting 2.
May have gotten the wall. Schlosser absolutely pancaked the wall. We might have to bring caution out to fix the safer barrier damage there outside of turn number 2. But Watson puts himself up to second. What a brilliant move there. He got the inside, and since it was a restart, didn't lose that much momentum off of 2 to Brian LaBarge.
Yeah, fantastic move there by Watson to gain the spot. Wes Shire going to work on the AJ Camargo here. He's got Schlosser right behind. A little bit further back, Daniel Miglin coming around Drujin Wang. Now let's go back up to the front as Watson looking inside of Yoshikawa towards turn 1.
I'm calling team orders here.
I don't know that I would call team orders, but there is something to be said for, I believe there is a bonus point for leading the most laps.
There is not a bonus point for leading the most laps, but there is most definitely a bonus point for leading a lap.
So Watson definitely has the lap lead, as he already has 53 on the books here tonight.
Oh, excuse me, I have that backwards. There is no bonus point for leading a lap, but there is one for most laps led.
For most laps led. So Watson leading 53 laps at this point. The next closest is going to be Nagase Yoshikawa with 12 laps led. Brian LaBarge has led 5.
Watson is in the fight for the team championship. He needs to get every bonus point he can here and needs to win this race and hope his competitors finish pretty far back in this field if he wants a hope at clawing back the loss he suffered at Watkins Glen.
Now that you say that, his championship rival, Chris Hill, out of this race, for all intents and purposes anyway. He's still in the pit box for 7.5 minutes in the 20th position. This is going to be Chris Hill's drop week. Watson at least is opening the door to having a shot when we go to the artist formerly known as Gateway 1 week from tonight. Easily one of the best ovals for the PM18s on the iRacing platform. Crazy fast, very wide. It's basically like, for these cars, like running Daytona or Talladega.
For half of the circuit, yes. The first half of the circuit, you go into a high-banked, very tight corner, and it's a brief lift, and you go through. The second half of the circuit in these cars, same thing, but low-banked, very wide corner that you have a brief lift. So you have two different lines that you have to run. You can run 2-3 wide through turns 3 and 4. Through turns 1 and 2, you have to take that low line if you want to make that track stick. So basically, you have everyone going down the front stretch, going into one single line, making that tighter corner. Then down the back stretch, they fan out again. It gets super wide. And then you go 3, 4, 5 wide into the big open turn, and they have to narrow back down the 1-2 cars wide going into turn 1. It is absolutely... It's almost like synchronized swimming, watch these cars going around Gateway.
And for that matter, the closest finishes in the history of the TNT Shock Series have about all come at Gateway. There's 1 or 2 that were at Iowa, but Gateway is just known for putting on incredible finishes to these races. Watson holding the lead by about 0.2 of a second over Yoshikawa. Labarge another half second back in third. Chris Hill passing Justin Elliott. He is back on the racetrack. Chris Hill will pick up another position. 2 laps from now, he'll come around Peter Donchak. That'll put him up to 18th. Going back to that points discussion, the goofiness of the system, sometimes it can be very worthwhile to go from 19th to 18th, because it's not 1 point, it might be 2 or 3.
Exactly, and going back to the point of close finishes, I think back to the week that we had these cars at Gateway on Tuesday night. Or Monday night, it was somewhere else with the Silver Crowns. They had a photo finish. Then we had these cars that were like a 0.2 of a second finish. And then Thursday night, we had these same cars for the official at Road America. And it was a dead even finish. It was the week of photo finishes here on the National Race Network. I think the only one that missed out was the Sim Racers Club on Wednesday that did not have a photo finish.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those. In fact, when we were doing the PM18 official broadcasts on Thursday nights, we had, it was, I can't believe I'm forgetting these guys' names.
Carter Lundy and Ted Burns, I thought.
No, Porcelli. David Porcelli.
Yes.
Finished 1-2, 3 straight weeks by a combined margin of victory of 4 1/1000ths of a second. Back-to-back-to-back weeks separated by 1,000th at the line. Absolutely incredible stuff. We might have to put together like a closest finishes highlight reel or something to show for you guys in a pre-race show, but let's move back up towards the front. Pick up Jason Miller, Wes Shire, Matt Schlosser. I have to be thinking the first run for these drivers, James Watson went 58 laps, 61 laps for Brian Labarge. We're only about 20 laps or so away from hitting that number, but I'm seeing about 50 laps to go is where we are now. The pit window is open for that final stop of the race.
Yeah, now James Watson being the leader, there's no other strategy than wait as long as you can. If you short pit, you're going to put yourself in traffic with cars in the back of the pack. A guy like Wes Shire, Schlosser, Nick Camargo, even Steven Thompson, the short pit might be the move to go. I don't know that you could pick up 1.8 seconds short pitting, but you could definitely pick up a second doing that, and that would put him up effectively to the 4th or 5th position.
Wes Shire is sitting 1.1 seconds back. If you gain a second with a short pit, could be worthwhile. But the big thing is, when do the tires cliff? Because the Cooper tires that are modeled on these cars just seem to get better and better and better as the run goes on until they fall off the cliff. If you're able to time that out where that's going to happen, that is such a huge benefit. Maybe not happening at 38 laps. You might have another 8 to 10 that you can get out of it. But you have to start thinking about it. Do you want to go the full 58?
When I was doing the Road to Pro stuff, before it got huge, before it got the $100,000 prize and the TV money, back when Road to Pro was still 40 or 50 guys getting together in the early days of iRacing, I used to sit in crew chief with a TI-84 graphing calculator that we would do hours and hours of practice on, and I would have that tire curve in addition to a fuel curve on there saying, hey, lap 38 is when you need to pit. Lap 39, you lose a full second. Lap 40, you crash every time. We have to pit lap 38 on these tires. It just seems like the it just seems like the iRacing tire model, just generally across the board, it's always had that cliff where they get better, and there's nothing. There's no progressive fall off. It's just you go from 90 to 0.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that. And AJ Camargo, by the way, just made the first of the leaders to make his final stop. He is back out on the racing surface now. That was one of the things that iRacing made a point to mention in the development update that they just put out, was the fact that the entire concept of tire modeling is being reworked to possibly include things like punctures and tire damage and picking up gravel and picking up rubber and running offline, and having a truer to life model of that. It seems like every time iRacing talks about the tire model, that's going to be the next huge thing. But it always feels like that's the big change. Very rarely does iRacing just completely miss when they release a tire model. I want to say at new tire model like 2 or new tire model 3, that one was a big miss. But other than that, I mean, we're on new tire model 7, I believe it is now. And it just seems like the modeling, the math behind it gets better and better.
Yeah, tires are the big thing that separates sims from the arcades. Engines are very easy to model. I've worked for a handful of engine shops now, ranging from levels of professional dirt racing in the World of Outlaws to guys that have worked for NASCAR in the past to top-level NHRA stuff. Every single one of them uses computer programs from the 90s to run their dynos. Tires are where it's at. There's so much in just how the rubber moves against each other, so many different compounds, so many different ways the tire interacts with the surface. Concrete versus asphalt versus a humid day where the tire rubber is a little softer and a little moldier, to a very dry day where the rubber almost just wants to crack around the surfaces. And that is what separates a good sim from a bad sim from an arcade game.
And to that point, it's not just the tread of the tire. Where they seem to have the biggest issues in getting enough computing power to handle the math is in the sidewall of the tire, because it's not a fixed, rigid thing. It deflects inside and out as the car moves through the corners. It also acts a little bit as a spring as well. The teams factor in the real world, they factor in the stiffness of the sidewall when setting up the suspension geometry. That's something that they're just not able to do yet. But the better the CPUs and GPUs get, we're getting closer and closer to having true real world simulations is what we're driving here in the game world, so to speak.
Absolutely, and that's why shocks in the dirt racing world, if you know anyone that's a dirt racer, they all talk about shocks. It's because your shocks and your tire pressures is what manages how that tire is moving up and down with the road. On a dirt track, the track is a slidey surface. You're not so much concerned about the adhesion between the surface of the tire and the dirt. That's always going to suck regardless.
Sorry, that was close between Miller and LaBarge through 3 and 4. Oh my goodness. In fact, LaBarge had to back way out of it. He's now into the clutches of Matt Schlosser. Jason Miller still up underneath the attenuator in Nagisa Yoshikawa.
But that tire pressure is your spring. It changes the stiffness of the sidewall. And your damper, your shocks, are all that's adjusting for that. And that's what you're trying to do, is bend the sidewall enough where you can get some of the sidewall into the dirt. And we have a side-by-side battle here, but you're basically trying to use the tire as the entirety of the car to grip the track as hard as possible.
Yeah, it is a dark art how they set those things up. And it's true in the IndyCar world as well, even the USF Pro world. The damper package is really the only big thing these teams have to play with. And at this level, just adjusting it right is absolutely critical to these drivers. So now...
I remember...
Okay.
when I was running this car 3-4 years ago, when it was me and Oysen Walsh, that one week at Nashville, when I finally caught up to Oysen, figured out what he was doing, the setup was almost the same to everyone else's. I took a Westshire setup, and all I changed was the ride height and the shocks. And basically, you wanted to max out that right rear shock, get it into the yellow where it barely passed tech, and that's what made these cars fast. It wasn't anything else but your shock settings, which shock seems so inconsequential. The adjustments they make are so minute. But me and Oysen were a full second faster than the rest of the field. At a second at a track that you're only turning 9-second laps is basically a 10% faster than everyone else. It's massive.
Westshire,
battle for the lead going on now.
Yeah, battle for the lead, and Westshire is on pit lane, the first of the front pack after the 59 of Nietzsche Camargo to come down pit lane. Jason Miller grabs the lead away from Watson. Yoshikawa and Lafarge continue to battle side by side, and now we're at 58 laps for James Watson. This is where he stopped last time, and we started to see the fall off here. Does Watson have to stop here, and everybody else is going to be able to go a couple of laps farther?
That might be. He's been in clean air this entire time, so his tires are going to be okay, but fuel is still a number you have to hit here. If you run out of fuel, you're going to drop like a rock, your engine makes no power. And being in clean air, yes, you have the advantage of not wearing your tires much, you're able to push harder in the corners, you're able to go faster. All of that comes with using a hell of a lot more fuel than everyone else.
Well, and now you're down inside basically of 8 minutes remaining. In fact, 8 minutes left on the clock as we speak. 23 and a half laps to go is what we're seeing. Could somebody go fuel only? Watson going to be the first to head for pit lane.
Watson, as soon as he got back in the pack, though, makes the move, going to short pit over everyone else. You're not going to gain the time in clean air anymore. You might as well make it up on the short pit. The only loser on the short pit is the leader. If you're not the leader, there's no disadvantage.
So Watson down pit lane. Looks like he got to the limiter on time. The question is, does the car go up on the jacks, or is it a splash and dash? That's it. Oh, Watson has to pull forward. And he is going to take, wow, that was a long stop for James Watson. 5.5 seconds. We pick up your race leader, Jason Miller. It's nearly 1 second over Brian Labarge, the advantage now.
Watson, right there is where he threw this race away. Not anything he did on track, not any of his racecraft, not even losing the lead on those older tires. Missing the pit box right there, that extra second it cost him, just killed every advantage of that short pit.
So now the question becomes, do we see Brian Labarge go up on the jacks? Watson only took fuel. 5.5 seconds was the time of the stop for the 39 car.
If you know that fuel stop's going to be 5.5 seconds, you take tires. Tires only take 5.5, 6 seconds in this thing. Brian Labarge stays off the jacks. Fuel only for Brian Labarge as well.
4.9 seconds, the time of the stop for Labarge with 6:15 to go.
At this point, they have to be reaching the cliff of these tires. This track just overheats that right rear tire so much. I think we're going to see some of those cars that aren't taking tires spin around and bring out a late race caution. Approaching 5 minutes to go, we're going to get the quickie yellow. There's not going to be time to take a pit stop and recover if you overheat that tire.
That's a great point. If you're planning on, in case there's a caution, you're going to have a quickie yellow. That is a huge deal for these drivers. We're about 40 seconds away from the quickie yellow procedure. Excuse me, Daniel Miglin, black flag, too fast, entering pit lane. He is going to fall well back. Simon Fell on pit lane now. Jason Miller went 64 laps last time. He is working lap number 63 of this stint. Nagase Yoshikawa, 62 on the first stint, now working lap number 65. The question is, now, if you get a yellow, could you make it to the end? Or do you need, because of the quickie yellow? Well, let's see. Yoshikawa's going to come down pit lane now.
Almost spins it into the attenuator.
Of note, James Watson behind Wes Shire, Nieje Camargo, Brian Labarge. And are we going to see, let's pick him up here, the number 86 of Drew Bernardi. He only has 55, now 56 laps on this stint. We're seeing about 14 to go with 4 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. Could Drew Bernardi stay out? Now, he does have, I believe, a lap advantage. He's a lap down to Matt Schlosser and Steven C. Thompson. But he would make that up by staying out on the racetrack. Bernardi is now up to 4th. Could the move of the race have happened under the only caution flag of the night, with the pit stop just shy of halfway? And the caution's out. Yellow flag is out. Trouble for Nagase Yoshikawa. See what happened here to Nagase. Into turn 1. Oh, maybe a little help from the 59 to Nieje Camargo. But that will bring out the yellow flag with 3.5 minutes remaining. Oh my goodness.
From that angle, I can't see if there was teammate-on-teammate violence there.
Steven C. Thompson is coming down pit lane.
Steven comes down pit lane, but what this is going to do, Matt Schlosser, currently the top car, if he doesn't pit, this is going to put just about the rest of the field 1 lap down. He is going to be on old equipment, though. He probably can make it on field, but there's no guarantee.
Okay.
You're going to have a guy like Steven Thompson now taking the pit stop, going to be right behind him. Vic Aldrich as well, another super fast driver.
Vic Aldrich and Steven C. Thompson both on their way out of the pits. Drew Bernardi got the lucky dog. He's now back on the lead lap. Jason Miller, Brian Labarge, Wes Shire, James Watson, they are all 1 lap down. 5th on back is a lap down to your 4 race leaders.
Not only that, a guy like Drew Bernardi, you get the lucky dog, that's a free pit stop, because no matter what, you're the last car to lead lap. You don't start tail end of the field. He is going to start 4th. He gets in front of all of those cars that are a lap down. You don't go to the back, you still pass all of those lap down cars.
No,
that is a
quickie yellow. It's a quickie yellow. There is no shuffling. Matt Schlosser is your race leader. Vic Aldrich in 2nd place is 7 seconds behind the race leader. All Matt Schlosser has to do is make it to the end, but he is on lap 71 of this stint. Vic Aldrich, Steven C. Thompson, Drew Bernardi, they're all nose to tail. But the question is, can Schlosser make it the rest of the way? Green flag back in the air, inside of 90 seconds to go.
Watson fighting his hardest to pass Shire and Labarge, make the best out of this night as he can. Side by side with Shire now, 3 wide. Schlosser is slow on the restart, but it doesn't matter. He's still in the lead. All those cars are a lap behind him.
Correct. All of these guys that are passing him are just getting back on the lead lap with 60 seconds to go. Vic Aldrich has cut the gap down to 2.5 seconds.
The news for Schlosser is if the caution comes out, he wins this race. There's no chance we could have another restart here.
Correct.
45 seconds left to go. Schlosser is down below the yellow line. He's out of gas.
Aldrich down to the inside. Schlosser's out of fuel. Steven C. Thompson's around. Bernardi only 2.5 car lengths back down the backstretch with 30 seconds to go.
I said it at the 25-minute mark when we had that caution. Thompson's move might have been the race-winning move of the night. And at this point, I think it is. I'm willing to set it in stone. All Thompson has to do is make it 2 more laps around this circuit, and this race is his. He stopped for fuel. Fuel is not an issue. All he has to do is not crash that car.
He's only 5 laps into the stint. Drew Bernardi might have some fuel worries, but the white flag is out. 1 lap to go. If the podium holds, Thompson, Bernardi, and Aldrich, 3 guys we talked nothing about all night.
Steven C. Thompson through turn 4 into the final section of track, hits the checkered flag. Steven C. Thompson, the boy out of Indiana, the Hoosier, wins it.
What a fantastic race. We talked about the possibility of some strategical shenanigans. I think we saw the shenanigans play out in victory lane for Steven C. Thompson. What a race.
Plays the strategy game fully. Normally strategy races are boring to watch. They're terrible to commentate on. This one just struck us out of nowhere. I could not have predicted that ending. I said that might be the race-winning move when he made the pit, and we didn't talk about him once until 3 laps to go.
Very similar to the All-American 400 last weekend. We finished that show, and Garcia, the race winner, we wrapped the whole show. We went, where the hell did he come from? We didn't say 4 words about him the entire show. He was there at the end, put the car in a position to win, and Steven C. Thompson doing that exact same thing tonight, leading a grand total of 4 laps tonight, but they were the 4 big ones, the final 4 circuits of this race here at Richmond Raceway. Steven C. Thompson going to park it in victory lane. Oh my goodness. I can think of a couple of drivers that are not going to be real happy with where they finished here tonight. But we'll get to that storyline here. Let's take a look at our race results after 140 laps. Steven C. Thompson, Drew Bernardi, and Vic Aldrich on the podium. Jason Miller finishes 4th. He led 15 laps here tonight. Wes Shire completes the top 5. 6 through 10, Brian Labarge, Simon Fell, James Watson leading a race-high 90 laps. And about had the strategy played perfect, he is only going to come home in the 8th position here tonight. Little bit of a bobble in that last pit stop, but I don't think that cost him 8 positions. Jason Paydu and Drew Jin Wang round out the top 10. Second page of your results tonight. Matt Schlosser, Mike Long, Murray Damon, Daniel Miglin, and Nagasayo Shikawa back through 15th. 16 through 20, Nieje Camargo, Jesse Francisco, Chris Hill, Peter Donchak, and Justin Elliott. Dave Sparks finishing 21st. The Bizzler, he did drive a little tonight, if you can believe that. Finishing 22nd, 130 laps behind the race winner.
Stop rubbing it in.
Steve Costley, Jason Owens, Ben Carswell round out your field of 25 cars here this evening. And by the way, Steven C. Thompson tried to find victory lane, and then he fell off the face of the earth.
If it's worth anything, I finished ahead of Ben's car as well, and that's all that matters. Ben, I still have that Danica Patrick flag sitting right up on my countertop. Thank you very much for the gift.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's bring in our victory lane podium finishers here. We will start things off with Vic Aldrich. And Vic, congratulations. You were sideways through the infield with about 3 laps to go. But the way the strategy played out, it really didn't hurt you all that much. Congratulations on a top 3 finish here tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Was ahead of Steven and Drew there with like 3 laps to go. And I don't know if like we were talking here in the waiting room, if it was just fresh tires and low fuel that kind of caused that. But I just got loose off of 4. Thought I was going to save it, just kind of holding the brake and turning right. And I was able to keep it from going completely around, but couldn't keep my pace. And I'm just glad I didn't take Drew or Steven out, honestly. But very happy with 3rd, and I just kind of had to limp it around. I don't know if I had a rear wing there at the end, but I was able to get it there, so that was what mattered.
Well, based on what we're seeing, yes, you still had a rear wing on the car. Now, granted, that may not be what your sim saw and what you were feeling, but when you saw that yellow come out late, what became the thought process? Because all of a sudden you go, man, I can make a pit stop here. I'm still on the lead lap, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we got a shot.
Yeah, so Steven and I know we were on the same exact strategy. Drew was I think, had a few extra laps, but Steven and I, we had probably about 5 laps to go with the yellow, so we would have been a little bit short, I think. And so that's why we both came in. And then before the yellow was going to come out, though, I just saw how everything was lining up, and I knew I was at least going to gain positions on pit road by just doing a small fuel stop, But when the yellow came out, I knew we had a lap on the field, I looked right up at the top left and saw my standings and everything, and everyone was a lap behind us. So I knew I was at least getting a podium out of this, but, I needed gas, and so I was okay with going to the back of the field and settle with a third, but Steven had to come with me, and I was surprised Schlosser didn't come down, but, we were able to make it work, and I just, I was that short, that close away from my first win, and just kind of threw it away, and I feel kind of bummed, but really happy still to get another podium at the same time.
Well, it was a fantastic show you guys put on for us here tonight. Congratulations on it, Vic. And before we let you go, do all those sponsor plugs and shout-outs for us here, too.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Chris and Bizzle here at NRN. You guys are the best. Love all your broadcasts you guys put together. You make us look real good out there. I want to thank TWRS, Team Watson Racing, James Watson, all my teammates there, Martin Sports Apparel, Mane and Tail, Dizzy V Designs. I do all my paint schemes, so if you're looking for a paint scheme, just hit me up on Instagram. Want to thank my girlfriend, my mom, thank my dog Reese, my crew chief back here. She makes all the pit calls. She's the one that got us on that pit strategy. And also want to dedicate another race, as always, to my brother Jeff. We lost him just over a year and a half ago, and every race is for him, and that first win is going to be pretty amazing when it happens.
All right, Vic. Well, thank you much, sir. And I do have to say, we miss seeing Jeff in the comments, too. We think about you guys a lot here, Vic, and appreciate you coming to hang out with us up here in the booth. Man alive, he was excited. I think Drew Bernardi might be more excited. Our runner-up finisher here tonight, piloting the number 86. Drew, when you made the pit stop at right about halfway, we made a point to call it out because it was you and it might have been Steven C. Thompson. I forget who the other driver was that made a stop right there at halfway. Did you think, man, if this works, this is really going to work out for me? Because it certainly played out well into a second-place finish tonight.
I was just like, I need to take a shot at this, take the Hail Mary because, really wasn't that fast on the track. Didn't know that I was going to be, if I was going to make it to this race this morning, was literally bolting my wheelbase back onto my rig after moving. And so just hadn't had the time to learn the track and everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take the Hail Mary, and just so excited that it worked out.
Well, it certainly worked. And then how difficult is it to be patient? Because when you make that strategy call, you kind of have to just play the race to the number. You have a fuel number you have to hit. How difficult is that to be patient and kind of sometimes just watch the field go by? I mean, you were a lap down at one point.
It's so hard because you want to race, you want to get past people. The biggest thing for me was trying to make sure that once I was back on the lead lap, after that pit stop, that I didn't, I did go back a lap down, but I didn't let everybody get past me. And, just really making sure that I took care of my throttle and just trying to wait it out. Towards the end, you start to get a little antsy. You're like, okay, maybe I'm going to run out here, but, just hoping for that caution and just, just reminding myself repeatedly that if I just, be patient and hold on here, I think we can get a great finish out of it.
Well, you certainly did just that. Go ahead, Bizzle.
I just want to give a huge shout out here too to Drew Bernardi. The last race we had at Watkins Glen had an avoidable incident. You're really beating yourself up over it, and you're able to get back here in the car, put yourself in a second place finish here tonight. Really showing why you are a veteran driver. Not so much in this series, but in the other series that you're on. We've seen you in the Silver Crowns, where you're just able to get back in the car, put yourself back into a net zero mindset, and just go out there. And here you are finishing second after what probably was not a great finish at Watkins Glen. Just able to do that full reset, especially after just moving and setting your rig up in the first time in a new house to go out there and be top of the top. Is really, really, really impressive.
Thank you so much. I'm my own worst critic, especially when it comes to this. I overanalyze my finishes or, the mistakes I made. And, really just having that time off between the races and then, having to completely reset life, helps you reset the mindset. So just glad that I could come out here and put Watkins Glen behind me. Big shout out to Team Watson Racing Setups, always bringing great setups. Shout out to James Watson. Glad I did not take him out this week. And just big shout out also to Pokey Dubs on Twitch, one of my other sponsors. So if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be doing this. So just big thanks to everybody, and so glad to have come out of here with a great finish.
Well, Drew, congratulations on the podium finish here tonight. Just an absolutely awesome show out of Drew Bernardi. And now it's time for us to pick up our race winner tonight, Mr. Stephen C. Thompson. And you only led 4 laps tonight, brother, but you got the best 4 to lead. Those are the ones at the finish. Talk us through things, because you were really sitting in kind of the catbird seat when that final caution came out. You knew that the guys at the front were either going to have to stop or be slow, and you kind of had a freebie that you could take to pit lane.
Yeah, it's been the story all season, kind of. You find a middle of the race when it's very inopportunistic, and you throw a caution, and everyone gets confused, and it causes a lot of problems. And the easiest way to avoid that is to be out on the track when the caution happens. So the mentality all night was, we'll save fuel around the fast guys. I was probably a few setups off of the top 6. That's why I was tagging tail to save fuel and run laps with them. Got some good separation, but whoever was staying out, we had to pit. The 4 of us, we were all in the same boat. I saw Matt run out on second to last lap or something. I knew I was going to run out. Had to pit. So whether it was emergency service or not, pit lane was open for us when we came around that time. But just a bunch of confusion, especially with the wave rounds. I knew that staying out, holding track position, and just banking on the time running out, because we were getting long green runs. But that green flag pit cycle always throws a wrench into things. So I'm glad to be on the good side of it for once this season.
Yeah, and actually, the strategy probably doesn't play out the same way if Matt doesn't stay out on the racetrack. But he trapped a whole pile of cars a lap down by staying out back to the green flag. That really made that decision by Matt Schlosser was likely the key to victory for you.
Yeah, and I think everyone felt the same way, that if all 4 of us stayed out and tried to chance it, we'd have 4 lead lap cars running out of fuel in front of every single lap car behind us. So the safe thing to do was pit. I think I got to take tires, and I lost a spot to Vic on pit road, but that was only because there were only 3 cars on pit road. So might as well do it. Every single lap car on that track probably took tires when they short pit us to try to undercut on a green flag run. I was just hoping that my smooth and consistent driving was going to be enough on a green flag stop, but we never got to that point, so we'll never know.
Well, and now as we head into Gateway 1 week from tonight to close out the fall season, a dub puts you, when you start to factor in the drop weeks and stuff, you're going to be up towards the top 5 of this championship. And I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, but got to be feeling pretty good here in where you sit in terms of the championship position.
Yeah, the point structure is interesting, where you really need to be on the sharp end of the field to gain ground. You kind of see that chunk of heavy competitors around 4 to 10, just because those back end podium and top 10 spots pay a lot tighter than the podium itself. So I'm happy to have a win. I think it's coming up on a year. I was curious because I ran a Richmond set at North Wilkesboro and won. So I tried to run a North Wilkesboro set at Richmond, and that's not what I did tonight. I just stole Wes's setup. But we'll chalk it up for number 2 in the career, and glad to have it for Shock.
Well, fantastic drive tonight. It started 13th, so kind of mid-pack. Ultimately making up 12 spots to be our, I think, number 2 in terms of the hard charger behind Drew. Fantastic drive tonight. And before we let you go, do any of those sponsor plugs or shout outs you want to get in here?
Yeah, number 2 to Drew Bernardi. That was 25th to 2nd, so that's definitely a hard charger for the night. But shout out to my pregnant wife downstairs, the sleeping baby in the other room, and parents or family around that's watching, and you guys as always, because I know we get so much excitement from you guys enjoying the community racing.
Wait, that's an announcement. You did it again?
We did it again. We're crowdsourcing names right now, but we've got a pretty heavy favorite right now.
I would say you need to find it.
Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, congratulations. I would say you need to find a new hobby, but you're currently doing your other hobby. So congratulations on the win and the next addition to the family there, Steven. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us up in the booth tonight. Man, Bizzle, I tell you what, this one was fun because we had the great battles at the front of the field, and that was definitely something that we could follow all night long. But then you had that other element that you kind of had to keep in the back of your head, and that's usually something you see on the road course side of things, not so much on the ovals.
Yeah, basically, for the bigger car stuff, it's only Pocono you have to think about the crazy strategies like that and the short pitting. But these smaller cars, they can make some of these smaller ovals where normally you think of Richmond as a short track. Now, this is a super speedway for these cars, but Richmond over Iowa, you're still braking just a touch here. You're still trying to keep the car under you. It's very Pocono-esque in that sense for these smaller cars. And you can get some of those wild road course strategies where you're definitely throwing numbers up in the air and pitting earlier than you should just to make a later number hit. It's a very, very interesting concept, and one that I wish I had my calculator in front of me for this race for that reason. I wish I built a spreadsheet for this one like I do at some of the Pocono races or some of our bigger points nights because of the different storylines that we had here tonight. If I would have expected that, I would have had a little more fun tonight.
Well, and that's something that now next week, it kind of goes out the window, sort of, when we head to Gateway. Round 6 of 6 for the fall championship season for the TNT Shock Series, and it is going to be a battle. James Watson did not make up nearly as much ground as he would have liked to on Chris Hill, but Chris Hill finishing 18th tonight, this is his drop week. There is no margin for error for him next week. When you start to think about the bigger racetracks, the big crash has to be something that is going to weigh on these drivers' minds. And we could legitimately have as many as 5 or 6 drivers in the championship battle when we line up on the grid next week.
Yeah, I will definitely have a spreadsheet going for next week's race. Chris knows my spreadsheets quite fondly. I don't think we've ever shown him here on the broadcast. But I think that could be something fun to do. We do a little tunnel, and you could pop my spreadsheet up in the corner, and we can zoom in on some of the things that are happening, because they're really fun to work on. I don't talk so much during the final race of a season, because I'm over here doing math like a madman, trying to do live points like you get on a Fox Sports or an NBC broadcast. There's people in the back doing that math in live time, and I'm trying to do that while commentating. Hopefully we can get that up on the air.
Ben Carswell checking in saying a spreadsheet, what a nerd. But you know what? That's how you bring the real feel to these things. Is we actually work at these things. But with that, I think it's going to be time for us to get the heck on out of here. A great show tonight out of the TNT Shock Series. Bizzle and I and maybe James Watson, we might have a little bit of discussing to do about how we're possibly going to come back a little bit hot and heavier with into the new year and what some of the plans might be for iRacing 2025 Season 1, if you can believe we're almost there already. But we get an extra week to talk about it, because this is one of those weird years where we get a week 14. So you get 2 weeks of week 13 action on iRacing after this season. And we're also coming up on, I believe, the 5th anniversary of Beef and a Smile.
Of Soda and a Smile. Originally, it was going to be. So, if we could stay on the air for just a moment. Originally, it was going to be Coke and a Smile. Because the iRacing Super Speedway was way back in 2003. It was Coca-Cola Super Speedway. And unfortunately, iRacing couldn't get the rights to use Coca-Cola again to create this great track that was a fictional track way back in 2003. So it just became iRacing Super Speedway. We had to change the name of our race to Soda and a Smile. This will be the 5th running of it. That means 5 years we've been doing this dumb crap. 5 years since I met Chris Graham and have been doing this stuff in the real world. Basically pursuing my 5-year-old's dream of, I want to do something with TV, and here we are 5 years later, and dreams become reality, man. So If
Yes.
you're watching this broadcast, you can make it happen.
You know what? Yes, they do. Seeing something that you direct and produce on national television is it's kind of surreal. I do have to say that, and quite frankly, it probably doesn't happen without COVID happening, because the crew of people that we put together it all stemmed from that.
Yeah, literally, I remember the text message of you wanting to go shoot something at Snydersville and me being like, hell, well, I already do the iRacing stuff with you. I race at Snydersville every week. Yeah, hell yeah, I can be down there. And unfortunately, I crashed my car trying to get on the Throgs Neck Bridge, so I had to go back, grab my father's car, and that was one hell of a week. And I blew my father's car up on the drive back from Ohio after that. But that was the fun that started it all, man. And I wouldn't give it up for the world. And I actually had my first national television show, probably the show right before your Nashville show, when we did the Winchester 400. That one was also on MAV TV, so that felt insanely good to do. That was a cool show, and I'm glad to say that I heard on the mics on air that my camera was the last shot that was live. Like, mine was the closing shot, and I don't know if I could say this word on air, but probably orgasmic is the only word to describe that feeling.
Yes, there are. It's like I said, it's surreal when you see something that you put a lot of effort into showing up on national network television. It's pretty badass. But with that, we're getting out of here now. Enough reminiscing for the end of this show. Bizzle, thank you very much. I do appreciate all the help that you give us here on Tuesday nights, and everybody else that helps us get these shows on the air, keeps the website running, keeps the articles flowing. Alex, Ben, Mark, you guys are absolutely fantastic, as their seasons are all coming to an end here with World Finals wrapping up, the NASCAR season wrapping up and all. But with that, we're out of here. For Bizzler and everybody else here at the National Racing Network that helps us get these shows on the air, my name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great night, everybody.